Chapter 46-50. The battle raged inside the control tower as the trio of Straw Hats faced the formidable Tessa Horizon, one of Rimuru and Ultima's most trusted generals. The air crackled with tension as Tessa stood confidently in her sleek armor, her piercing eyes fixed on her opponents. Her mind-no-mi powers, combined with her advanced hockey of observation, made her an unpredictable and deadly adversary. Frankie groaned as he pulled himself from the wall, smoke rising from the dented plating on his chest. "Oi, that kick of yours packs a punch, lady. But you're gonna need more than that to take me down." Tessa smirked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Oh, don't worry, cyborg. There's plenty more where that came from." Before she could launch another attack, Jinbei stepped forward, his calm demeanor masking the tension building within him. "Frankie, Usopp," he said firmly, his voice steady, "go on ahead. Destroy the tower. I'll deal with her." Frankie turned to Jinbei, surprise etched on his face. "What, are you sure, Jinbei? She's fast, like, really fast." Usopp, gripping his slingshot tightly, added nervously, "Yeah, and she's been reading our minds or something. How are you supposed to fight someone who knows what you're going to do before you even do it?" Jinbei's gaze remained fixed on Tessa, his expression unwavering. "That's why you two need to focus on the mission. We don't have time to waste here." He cast a quick glance back at them. "I'll handle this. Go." Tessa tilted her head, her lips curling into a sly smile as she read Jinbei's thoughts. "Oh, you think you can take me on alone, fishman?" she teased, her tone dripping with mockery. "And you even believe you'll win? How cute." Frankie and Usopp hesitated, clearly torn, but Jinbei's commanding presence left little room for argument. With a nod, Frankie patted Jinbei's shoulder. "All right, you've got this. But don't take too long, buddy." Usopp gulped, his legs trembling as he turned toward the stairs leading further into the tower. "Yeah, don't let her read your mind too much. Good luck, Jinbei." As the two disappeared up the staircase, Tessa crossed her arms, watching them go with mild amusement. "You just sent them to their deaths, you know. If you can't stop me, they'll never succeed." Jinbei stepped into his stance, his broad frame radiating quiet strength. "They'll succeed," he replied simply. "Because I won't let you stop them." Tessa chuckled darkly, her fingers brushing against the hilt of a short blade strapped to her hip. "You're a brave one, I'll give you that. But bravery doesn't mean much when you're too slow to keep up." Before Jinbei could reply, Tessa shot forward with a burst of speed that left the air trembling in her wake. Her foot lashed out in a powerful kick aimed at Jinbei's side, and he barely managed to block with his arm, the impact forcing him back several steps. "She's faster than I expected," Jinbei thought, his muscles tensing as he braced for her next move. Tessa grinned as she caught his thought. "Oh, I'm just getting started, fishman." She closed the gap between them in an instant, delivering a rapid series of punches and kicks that pushed Jinbei onto the defensive. Her movements were fluid and precise, her strikes aimed at his vital points with pinpoint accuracy. Jinbei countered with a powerful palm strike, sending a shockwave rippling toward her. But Tessa twisted gracefully out of the way, her agility allowing her to evade the attack with ease. "You're strong," she admitted, her tone almost playful. "But strength means nothing if you can't land a hit." Jinbei narrowed his eyes, focusing his observation hockey to predict her movements. He waited for her next attack, and when she lunged forward with a high kick, he sidestepped at the last moment, delivering a quick but heavy punch to her side. Tessa gasped, the force of the blow causing her to stagger. But she quickly recovered, her expression hardening. "Not bad," she said, wiping a trickle of blood from her lip. "But you're still outmatched." She darted toward him again, her blade flashing as she swung it in a deadly arc. Jinbei blocked with his arm, the blade skidding off his hardened hockey. He retaliated with a powerful roundhouse kick, but Tessa ducked beneath it, her speed giving her the upper hand. The two fighters clashed again and again, their attacks creating shockwaves that shook the tower. Tessa's speed and precision were unmatched, but Jinbei's resilience and strength allowed him to hold his ground. He absorbed each hit with practiced endurance, waiting for the right moment to strike back. As the battle wore on, Tessa began to grow frustrated. "Why won't you fall?" she demanded, her voice sharp with irritation. "You're nothing but a fishman. You shouldn't be able to keep up with me." Jinbei's calm expression didn't waver. "Underestimating your opponent is a dangerous mistake," he said, his tone steady. "You rely too much on your speed and your mind reading. But neither will save you if you can't finish the fight." Tessa's eyes narrowed, her pride stung by his words. She lunged at him with renewed fury, her attacks growing more reckless as she tried to overpower him. But Jinbei remained focused, his observation haki allowing him to predict her every move. Finally, Jinbei saw his opening. As Tessa overextended in her attack, he stepped inside her guard, delivering a devastating punch to her midsection. The impact sent her flying backward, crashing into the far wall with a loud thud. Tessa coughed, struggling to her feet as she clutched her ribs. Her breathing was labored, and her once confident expression was now tinged with desperation. This can't be happening, she muttered, her voice trembling. I'm one of Rimuru-sama and Ultima-sama's generals. I'm stronger than this. Jinbei straightened, his gaze steady as he watched her. Strength isn't just about power or speed, he said calmly. It's about resolve, and my resolve to protect my crew and complete this mission is stronger than yours. Tessa's fists clenched, her mind racing with thoughts of her failure. Rimuru-sama, Ultima-sama, they'll be so disappointed in me, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jinbei took a step closer, his tone softening slightly. You fought well, he said. But this battle is over. Surrender, and spare yourself further pain. Tessa glared at him, her pride refusing to let her yield. But as she tried to stand, her legs gave out beneath her, and she slumped back against the wall, defeated. Jinbei turned away, his focus shifting back to the mission at hand. Usopp, Frankie, he murmured under his breath, it's up to you now. As he left the room, Tessa sat in silence, her thoughts consumed by her failure. She couldn't shake the image of Rimuru and Ultima, their faces filled with disappointment. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I've failed you. The throne room of the Tempest capital was a vast, imposing chamber, its walls lined with ornate carvings and gleaming with golden accents. Rimuru and Ultima sat on their thrones, exuding an aura of dominance and power. As Luffy, Law, and Kylum entered the chamber, the atmosphere grew heavy, the tension palpable. Rimuru rose from his throne, a sly smile playing on his lips. His golden eyes gleamed with a mixture of amusement and malice. So, you've finally made it, he said, his voice calm yet filled with an unspoken threat. Monkey D, Luffy, Trafalgar Law, and the would-be revolutionary prince, Kylum Drakemore. Ultima, sitting beside him, leaned forward with an eager grin. I've been waiting for this moment, she said, her voice dripping with excitement. You've caused quite the stir, but this is where your little rebellion ends. Let's see if you can entertain us before we crush you. Luffy grinned, the fire in his eyes matching the challenge before him. You think you're gonna crush us? Don't make me laugh. He slammed his fist into his palm, his rubbery body crackling with energy. I'm gonna beat you both, and then I'll become the king of the pirates. Law adjusted his hat, his expression calm but deadly serious. This isn't just about us, he said. This is about liberating everyone you've oppressed. You've ruled through fear long enough. Kylum stepped forward, his presence commanding despite the lack of powers. His sharp, golden eyes locked onto Rimuru. Your reign ends today. I may not have a devil fruit, but I have my haki and my conviction. That's more than enough to bring you down. Rimuru chuckled, unfazed by their declarations. Bold words. Let's see if you can back them up. He raised his hand, the air around him shifting ominously. His aura intensified as the power of the Soru Soru no Mi surged to life. Shadows twisted and writhed around him, taking on menacing forms. I'll show you the true meaning of fear. Ultima stood beside him, cracking her knuckles as the earth beneath her trembled. The power of the Gura Gura no Mi radiated from her, the air itself seeming to fracture around her fists. And I'll make sure you feel every bit of it, she added with a wicked grin. Gear, 5th, Luffy shouted, his body transforming as he activated his ultimate form. His hair and clothes turned white, and his body exuded a cartoonish, chaotic energy that distorted the air around him. He laughed, his voice booming. Let's get this party started. Law activated his room, the spatial sphere encompassing the throne room. His Kikoku sword gleamed as he pointed it at Rimuru and Ultima. Shambles, he declared, preparing for the chaotic combat to come. Kylum's golden hair glinted in the light as he took his stance, his haki radiating from him like a shield. Though he lacked a devil fruit, his conqueror's haki roared to life, matching the intensity of his allies. With no further words, the battle began. Luffy vs. Ultima. Luffy wasted no time, launching himself at Ultima with a wild grin on his face. Gomu Gomu no Gigant Pistol. His massive, rubbery fist shot forward, crackling with advanced armament haki. Ultima countered with a devastating punch of her own, her fist imbued with the tremor-inducing power of the Gura Gura no Mi. The collision created a massive shockwave, shattering the floor beneath them. Luffy was thrown backward, but he bounced off the wall like a rubber ball, laughing. "That's what I'm talking about. You're strong," Ultima smirked, wiping a trickle of blood from the corner of her mouth. "You're not so bad yourself, rubber boy. But let's see how you handle this." She slammed her fist into the air, creating a powerful quake that rippled toward Luffy. Luffy leapt into the air, his movements cartoonishly exaggerated. Gomu Gomu no Gigant Bazooka. His arms stretched impossibly far before snapping back with incredible force, striking Ultima head-on. Ultima grunted, sliding back from the impact but refusing to fall. "You're tougher than you look," she admitted. "But I'm just getting started." Law vs. Rimuru. Meanwhile, Law faced off against Rimuru, their battle a deadly dance of strategy and precision. Rimuru's shadows darted around the room like vipers, striking at Law from every angle. But Law was prepared, his room allowing him to teleport away from each attack. "Counter shock," Law shouted, delivering a jolt of electricity to one of Rimuru's shadow constructs. The construct dissipated, but Rimuru simply created more, his smirk never fading. "You're clever," Rimuru said, his voice calm and taunting. "But you'll need more than tricks to defeat me." Law's eyes narrowed as he activated his Haki of Observation, predicting Rimuru's next move. He teleported behind Rimuru, swinging his sword in a precise arc. But Rimuru's shadows intercepted the attack, deflecting it with ease. "You're predictable," Rimuru said, his tone condescending. He raised his hand, and the shadows surged toward Law like a tidal wave. Law countered with a powerful slash, his blade glowing with Haki. The attack sliced through the shadows, creating an opening. "Predictable, huh? Let's see if you predict this," he said, teleporting directly in front of Rimuru and slashing at his chest. Rimuru dodged at the last moment, but the blade grazed him, drawing blood. His smirk faltered for a moment before returning. "Not bad," he admitted. "But you'll regret that." Kylum joins the fray. Kylum, meanwhile, darted between the two battles, using his observation Haki to avoid stray attacks. He analyzed the movements of both Rimuru and Ultima, looking for openings. "Kylum," Luffy called out as he clashed with Ultima again. "Focus on Rimuru. I've got this one." Kylum nodded, turning his attention to Rimuru. "Law, let's take him down together." Law smirked, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. "About time you joined the fight." The two coordinated their attacks, Kylum charging at Rimuru with a flurry of sword strikes while Law used his rune to manipulate the battlefield. Rimuru found himself on the defensive, his shadows struggling to keep up with their combined assault. "Impressive," Rimuru admitted, deflecting Kylum's blade with a shadow construct. "You're more skilled than I expected. But skill alone won't be enough." He raised his hand, summoning a massive shadow beast that roared as it lunged at Kylum. Kylum stood his ground, his conqueror's Haki clashing with the beast's aura. With a single, precise strike, he cut through the beast, dispelling it. Both sides wounded. As the battle raged on, both sides began to show signs of wear. Luffy's Gear 5 form flickered as he struggled to maintain its energy, while Ultima's movements became slightly slower, her breathing heavier. Law and Kylum bore cuts and bruises from their clashes with Rimuru, while Rimuru himself had several wounds from their relentless attacks. Blood dripped from his arm, staining the floor beneath him. "You're strong," Rimuru admitted, his tone serious. "Stronger than I anticipated. But this fight isn't over." Luffy grinned, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "You're strong too, but I'm not done yet. I'm gonna win this, no matter what." Ultima wiped sweat from her brow, her grin still intact despite her injuries. "This is more fun than I expected," she said. "But don't think for a second that you can beat us." Kylum tightened his grip on his sword, his golden eyes blazing with determination. "We're not backing down. This ends here." The battle continued, each side refusing to yield despite their injuries. The room shook with every clash, the walls cracking under the sheer force of their attacks. But even as the fighters pushed themselves to their limits, one thing was clear: this was a battle that would not end easily. The throne room was in ruins, shattered by the previous clashes, but the fight showed no signs of stopping. Dust and debris filled the air, and the echoes of their battle reverberated across the Tempest capital. Luffy, battered and bruised, stood firm with a wild grin on his face. Blood trickled down his temple, but the fire in his eyes burned as fiercely as ever. Law adjusted his hat, his sword raised and glowing with Haki, while Kylum, though bloodied, held his stance with unyielding determination. Rimuru and Ultima stood across from them, their combined auras suffocating, radiating a deadly mix of malice and anticipation. "Oi, Luffy," La barked, his voice sharp. "You still have enough strength for that Gear 5 of yours." Luffy stretched his arms, cracking his knuckles with an exaggerated motion. "Hey, I'm just getting started." His body began to glow as he reactivated Gear 5, his appearance shifting into his chaotic, cartoonish form once again. His hair turned white, his eyes glowed with unrestrained energy, and the air around him twisted and warped with his overwhelming presence. Ultima scoffed, stepping forward as the ground cracked beneath her. "You don't know when to quit, do you?" She sneered. Her voice carried a hint of amusement, but her patience was wearing thin. "This is getting boring. Maybe it's time we show you what real power looks like." Rimuru nodded beside her, his calm demeanor masking the deadly intent beneath. "Agreed. They've managed to hold their ground longer than I expected, but this ends now." Ultima grinned wickedly, her hands glowing with the destructive energy of the Gura Gura no Mi, while Rimuru's shadows surged to life, infused with the power of the Soru Soru no Mi. The room darkened as their combined powers created a vortex of destruction, their haki intertwining with their devil fruit abilities. A devastating attack. Luffy, Law, and Kylum braced themselves as the oppressive energy built up before them. The sheer force of the combined attack was suffocating, and even Kylum, with his unshakable resolve, felt a flicker of doubt. "Brace yourselves," Law shouted, expanding his room to its maximum size in an attempt to shield them. Rimuru raised his hand, commanding a massive shadow beast that loomed behind him, its eyes glowing with malice. Ultima, beside him, slammed her fists together, creating tremors that cracked the very fabric of the air. "Prepare yourselves," Rimuru said coldly. "This will be the end of you. Let's show them why we rule this world," Ultima added, her grin widening as the tremor in her fists grew. With a synchronized motion, the two unleashed their attack. The shadow beast charged forward, its body infused with the destructive quakes of Ultima's power. The attack collided with the ground and exploded in a catastrophic wave of energy. The resulting blast was unlike anything Luffy, Law, or Kylum had ever seen. The throne room was obliterated in an instant, and the shockwave rippled outward, disintegrating a massive portion of the castle and extending into the city. Buildings crumbled, and a deafening roar filled the air as flames and destruction consumed everything in their path. The aftermath. When the dust settled, the scene was one of absolute devastation. A massive crater replaced the once grand throne room, and the city beyond it lay in ruins. Entire districts had been wiped out, and the air was thick with smoke and ash. The cries of those who survived echoed faintly, a haunting reminder of the lives lost in the destruction. Luffy, Law, and Kylum stood at the edge of the crater, their bodies battered and covered in dust. Their clothes were torn, and blood dripped from multiple wounds. But what shook them more than their injuries was the scale of the destruction. Luffy's usually carefree expression turned somber as he surveyed the ruins. What the hell is this?" he muttered, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. "So many people, gone." Law clenched his fists, his teeth gritted in anger. "They didn't care," he said, his voice filled with fury. "They wiped out their own people just to take us out. This isn't power, it's madness." Kylum's golden eyes burned with fury as he turned his gaze back to Rimuru and Ultima, who stood at the center of the devastation, seemingly unfazed by the destruction they had caused. "You're monsters," Kylum said, his voice cold and filled with venom. "How can you call yourselves rulers when you destroy your own kingdom?" Rimuru met his gaze, his expression unreadable. "Sacrifices are necessary for victory," he said calmly. "You should understand that by now." Ultima smirked, wiping a speck of blood from her cheek. "What's the matter? You were ready to fight us, weren't you? Did you think this would be clean and easy?" Luffy's fists clenched, his entire body trembling with anger. "You're gonna pay for this," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "I'm gonna beat you down for every single life you just took." The fight resumes. Luffy lunged forward, his body twisting and bending in his Gear 5 form as he unleashed a flurry of attacks. Gomu Gomu no Hydra. His fists shot out in rapid succession, each one crackling with advanced armament haki. Ultima countered with a barrage of tremor-infused punches, each impact creating massive shockwaves. The ground beneath them shattered as their attacks collided, neither giving an inch. Meanwhile, Law and Kylum focused their efforts on Rimuru. Law's room surrounded them, allowing him to teleport and strike from unexpected angles. "Injection shot," he shouted, his blade piercing through Rimuru's shadows. Rimuru retaliated, his shadows lashing out like whips. "You're persistent," he said, deflecting Law's attacks with ease. But persistence alone won't save you. Kylum joined the fray, his sword glowing with Conqueror's haki as he struck at Rimuru. We're not just persistent, he said, his voice steady. We're determined, and we won't stop until you're defeated. The three clashed in a blur of movement, their attacks creating shockwaves that rippled across the battlefield. Despite their injuries, Luffy, Law, and Kylum fought with unwavering resolve, refusing to back down. A surprising turn. As the battle raged on, Law and Kylum found an opening. Law teleported behind Rimuru, his blade glowing with energy. Gamma knife, he shouted, driving the attack into Rimuru's side. At the same moment, Kylum unleashed a powerful strike with his sword, the blade imbued with both armament and Conqueror's haki. The combined attack struck Rimuru head-on, sending him crashing into the rubble. For a moment, there was silence. Rimuru lay motionless, blood pooling beneath him. Ultima's eyes widened in shock as she turned to her fallen king. Rimuru, she shouted, her voice filled with disbelief. Luffy, Law, and Kylum stood side by side, their breaths heavy but their expressions triumphant. Looks like we got him, Law said, though his tone was cautious. But before they could celebrate, a voice echoed in Rimuru's mind, a calm, feminine voice filled with authority. Rimuru, I've unlocked your full potential. It's time to show them what true power looks like. Rimuru's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. The air around him shifted, and an overwhelming pressure filled the battlefield. The battle was far from over. The battlefield was silent for a brief moment, the air heavy with tension. Rimuru stood at the epicenter of the destruction, his eyes glowing with a godlike radiance as the energy of Void God Azathoth surged around him. The aura he emitted was suffocating, a gravitational force so overwhelming that it distorted the very fabric of reality. Nearby, Ultima stood with a wide grin, her confidence bolstered as she felt Rimuru's unleashed power. Luffy, Law, and Kylum stared at Rimuru in disbelief, the raw magnitude of his presence almost too much to comprehend. Law instinctively stepped back, his fingers trembling as he gripped his sword. This isn't normal, he muttered, his voice tinged with fear. That power, it's beyond anything I've ever seen. Luffy, still in Gear 5, cracked his knuckles and stepped forward with a wild grin. Doesn't matter how strong he gets. I'm not backing down, he declared, his voice filled with unshakable determination. Kylum's golden eyes narrowed as he tightened his grip on his sword. If we fall here, everything we've fought for is over, he said firmly. I'm not giving up, no matter what. Ultima laughed, the sound echoing eerily in the ruins of the palace. You idiots really don't know when to quit, do you? She mocked. Look at him. Rimuru's power isn't something you can hope to match. Her eyes gleamed as she turned her attention to the sky. Azura, she called out, her voice carrying a commanding tone, unlock my full power as well. Let me show them what true despair looks like. A moment later, a cold, calculating voice echoed in her mind. As you wish, my queen. Unleashing the monster, Ultima's body began to radiate with an intense, fiery aura as her power surged to its peak. The ground beneath her cracked and crumbled, and the air itself seemed to ignite as her ultimate skills melded together. Her eyes glowed with a fierce, otherworldly light as she stood beside Rimuru, now equally as terrifying. Well, what do you think? Ultima asked, her voice dripping with mockery. Do you still want to fight us? Luffy stepped forward, his body twisting and warping in his Gear 5 form as he raised his fist. Hell yeah, he shouted, his voice full of defiance. I'm gonna kick both your asses. Kylum nodded, his expression resolute. We've come this far, I'm not stopping now. Law hesitated, glancing between his two companions and the overwhelmingly powerful adversaries before them. This is suicide, he muttered under his breath. They're on an entirely different level now. Ultima tilted her head, a wicked grin spreading across her face. Oh, one of you actually has some sense, she said, laughing. But I guess it doesn't matter. You've all made your choice. Rimuru raised a hand, and the space around him seemed to ripple. I'll make this quick, he said, his voice devoid of emotion. You've wasted enough of our time. The unimaginable power of Azathoth. Without warning, Rimuru activated the full power of Void God Azathoth. The air grew deathly still for a moment before a cataclysmic explosion of darkness erupted from him. Shadows and void-like energy surged outward, consuming everything in their path. The sheer speed and scope of the attack left no time for anyone to react. The first to fall were the crews of Luffy and Law. Zoro, Sanji, Robin, Chopper, Jinbei, Frankie, Nami, Brook, Usopp, and Beppo, all of them were swallowed by the void in an instant. The revolutionary forces that had marched into the capital with such hope and determination were wiped out without so much as a scream. Entire blocks of the city vanished into nothingness as the destructive power of Azathoth erased them from existence. Luffy, Law, and Kylam stood frozen, their eyes wide with horror. The realization of what had just happened hit them like a tidal wave. Zoro, Sanji, everyone. Luffy's voice cracked, his usually vibrant energy replaced with a hollow despair. He fell to his knees, his hands clutching the ground as tears streamed down his face. They're gone, all of them. Law's sword dropped from his hand, clattering against the rubble. No, he whispered, his voice shaking. This can't be happening. Kylam stared at the destruction, his fists clenched so tightly that blood dripped from his palms. How could they do this? He muttered, his voice trembling with rage. They killed them all, like it was nothing. Ultima stepped forward, her grin wider than ever. Now do you understand? She taunted. This is what happens when you challenge gods. Your friends, your allies, they were nothing but insects to us. Captured. Before they could process their grief, Rimuru moved. In the blink of an eye, he was behind them, his shadowy tendrils wrapping around their bodies and pinning them in place. No matter how much they struggled, they couldn't break free. Don't bother, Rimuru said coldly. You're not going anywhere. Ultima approached, her expression one of twisted delight. Oh, this is going to be fun, she said, her voice dripping with malice. You thought you could stand against us? Now, you're going to pay for your arrogance. Luffy, despite the crushing weight of his despair, snarled at her. You won't get away with this. He shouted, his voice hoarse. I'll find a way to beat you. Ultima leaned down, her face inches from his. Oh, I'm counting on you to try, she said with a laugh. It's more fun that way. She turned to Rimuru, her grin widening. Let's take them back to the dungeons. I've got some ideas on how to make them regret their choices. Rimuru nodded, his expression unreadable. Do what you want, he said. They're no threat to us now. As they were dragged away, Kylam managed to lift his head, his golden eyes burning with defiance despite the tears streaming down his face. This isn't over, he said, his voice low but firm. You'll regret underestimating us. Ultima simply laughed, the sound echoing through the ruins of the palace. Oh, I doubt that, she said. But you can keep dreaming. The fall, the once proud rebellion had been crushed. Luffy, Law, and Kylam, the leaders of the resistance, were now prisoners of the very forces they had sworn to overthrow. The city of Tempest lay in ruins, and the deaths of their comrades weighed heavily on their shoulders. As they were dragged into the depths of the palace, Ultima hummed a cheerful tune, already planning the torment she would inflict. Rimuru walked beside her, silent but exuding an aura of absolute dominance. The fall of Luffy, Law, and Kylam was complete. And in the depths of the dungeon, despair awaited them. The once glorious palace of Tempest was undergoing rapid reconstruction, its walls being reinforced and towers rebuilt as workers scurried around like ants under the supervision of Rimuru's loyal forces. Inside the dungeons, however, there was no such industry, only the dark echoes of screams and laughter. Ultima, ever the sadistic queen, had turned the dimly lit underground chambers into her personal theater of torment. Luffy, Kylam, and Law hung from chains bolted to the ceiling, their bodies battered, bruised, and bloodied after a month of relentless torture. Yet, despite the pain, their spirits had not yet completely broken. Ultima, with a twisted grin, found their resilience amusing, a delightful challenge to her sadistic creativity. Ultima stood before them, a whip in one hand and a jagged dagger in the other. Her crimson eyes sparkled with malice as she circled her captives like a predator toying with its prey. Well, boys, she said cheerfully, her voice sickeningly sweet. How are we feeling today? Ready to tell me how pathetic you are? No, oh, don't worry, I've got all the time in the world. Luffy glared at her, his voice hoarse but defiant. You think, this'll break me? He rasped, coughing up blood. I'm not done yet, not by a long shot. Ultima tilted her head, feigning curiosity. Oh, really? I wonder how long you can keep saying that. She tapped the whip against her palm thoughtfully. Maybe we should test that today. What do you think, Kylam? Kylam, though just as battered, locked eyes with Ultima, his golden irises burning with hatred. You won't get away with this, he growled. You think you're invincible now, but there's always someone stronger. Ultima chuckled, a sound that sent chills down their spines. Stronger than me? Then Rimuru, you must be joking. But, please, keep dreaming. It makes your suffering all the more delicious. Law, leaning heavily against his chains, gritted his teeth as he spoke. You're just biding time, Ultima. Sooner or later, someone's going to take you down. And when they do, we'll laugh. Ultima laughed so hard she had to hold her sides. Oh, you're adorable, all of you. I could keep you alive just for entertainment, but, nah. I've got bigger plans. She snapped her fingers, and shadows danced on the walls as spectral hands emerged to clutch at their wounds, exacerbating the pain. Luffy let out a strained groan, but his glare never wavered. Kylum clenched his teeth so hard that blood trickled from his gums, and Law closed his eyes, focusing on keeping his breathing steady. Before Ultima could escalate her torment further, a faint, melodic voice echoed through the room. Ultima, enough for now. Come to the strategy hall. Ultima froze, her expression turning to mild irritation. Oh, come on, Rimuru. I was just starting to have fun. The voice was calm but firm. We have more important matters to discuss. The world isn't going to dominate itself. Ultima pouted dramatically before turning back to her captives. Looks like you three are getting a break today, she said mockingly. Don't get too comfortable, though. I'll be back. As she left, the room plunged into an uneasy silence, save for the labored breathing of the prisoners. The strategy hall. Ultima entered the grand strategy hall, where Rimuru was seated at the head of a long, ornate table. His demeanor was calm and calculating, a stark contrast to Ultima's chaotic energy. Around the table sat their remaining generals, Sylphira, Kalis, and Tessa, all of whom bore varying levels of injuries from their recent battles. Finally, Rimuru said, glancing at Ultima. Took you long enough. Ultima waved a hand dismissively as she took her seat beside him. Oh, please, you called me away from my fun for this, so it better be good. It's more than good, Rimuru replied, leaning forward. It's the beginning of something monumental. The generals straightened in their seats, sensing the gravity of his words. Sylphira, her sharp eyes glinting, was the first to speak. What do you have in mind, my king? Rimuru gestured to a massive map laid out across the table. It detailed the entire world, with key regions marked in red. The time has come for us to expand. With our full power unlocked, there's no force on this planet that can stand against us. Kalis nodded, his expression serious. I assume this means we'll be targeting the major powers first. Precisely, Rimuru said. The seas are fragmented, ruled by different factions, the Yonkus, the world government, and the remnants of smaller pirate crews. Each of them will fall before us. Tessa crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on the map. The world government has resources and reach, but they're arrogant. They'll underestimate us. Ultima smirked. And the Yonkus? We've already crushed 3 of them. She glanced at the 3 red X over the territory Luffy, Big Mom and Whitebeard once controlled. The others won't be any harder. Rimuru tapped a finger on the table, drawing their attention to 3 specific locations. We'll start by eliminating the Yonko territories closest to us. Once they're gone, we'll move on to the marine bases. Without their strongholds, the world government will crumble. And after that? Sylphira asked. After that, Ultima interjected with a gleeful grin, we take over everything. The seas, the skies, the land, it all belongs to us. Kalis frowned. There's no doubt we have the power to do this, but we should still proceed with caution. Overconfidence could lead to mistakes. Rimuru nodded. Agreed. That's why we'll split our forces strategically. Sylphira, you'll lead the first assault on the southern territories. Kalis, you'll take the east. Tessa, you'll handle the west. And what about us? Ultima asked, gesturing to herself and Rimuru. Rimuru's lips curved into a small smile. We'll handle the central strongholds. The heart of the world government and the remaining Yonkus. The generals exchanged glances, their excitement tempered with the weight of their task. Ultima, however, could barely contain her enthusiasm. This is going to be so much fun, she said, leaning back in her chair. I can't wait to see the look on their faces when they realize they're powerless against us. Sylphira smiled faintly. For the glory of Tempest, we'll ensure total victory. Kalis nodded. For our king and queen. Tessa hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. And what of the survivors? She asked quietly. Do we show them mercy? Ultima laughed. Mercy? That's cute. No survivors, Tessa. We're not here to play nice. Rimuru raised a hand, silencing the discussion. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, focus on executing the plan. The world will soon learn that defiance is futile. As the meeting concluded, the generals rose from their seats, their expressions a mixture of determination and anticipation. Rimuru and Ultima remained seated, their gazes locked on the map. "This is just the beginning," Ultima said, her voice almost a whisper. "Soon, they'll all bow before us." Rimuru nodded, his eyes cold and unyielding. "And those who don't, will perish." The room fell silent, the weight of their ambition pressing down like a storm about to break. The world would soon tremble under the might of Tempest, and no one, not the remnants of the rebellion, not the Yonko, not the world government, would be spared. To be continued.